So good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, everyone, depending on the time or where you are in the part of the world, right? So welcome to another webinar by Accounting Yard. This particular webinar is Excel Hack for Financial Modeling. Now, for those interacting with the brand for the first time, it will be nice to just welcome you into the brand and also know some level of what we call the ground rules or class rules, right? As much as possible, we encourage participants to make use of their real name in Zoom. And that's because it gives you an opportunity to be able to engage and ask questions, and we can basically be able to interact better using appropriate names. Using iPhone or Samsung may not help in terms of engagement, because later on, we're going to interact outside of the forum, and your name is what we would basically use in interacting. Yeah, everyone contributes, right? So as much as possible, we want to show you by the webinar is quite engaging, that from both ends, we're able to engage as much as possible, right? That way, we're able to share knowledge because no one is an island of knowledge. And just by engaging each other, we're able to improve our knowledge and basically interact properly, right? As much as possible, we've set it that everyone is on mute. And the idea is that we want to reduce the distraction from noise coming from where people are. So in case you have a question, you can either drop it in the chat box or signify by a raise of hands, as there will be opportunity for us to engage at that level of detail, whereby you ask a question and we to just talk about it. Yeah. There's no foolish question, right? As much as possible, ask questions, because from questions, everybody learns, right? It may be a question you're asking that someone actually has in mind, but is shy to say it. So as much as possible, we encourage people to ask questions as we all learn from it. Even if the question cannot be answered now, we'll find a more appropriate time to discuss or actually talk about such a question. Yeah. Who are we as accounting yard? Yeah. We have set a vision for ourselves to become the #1 practical accounting school globally, possibly impacting the lives and careers of over 2 million accountants, right? So it's been in existence for over 7 years. And for those who have not interacted with us, we're available on so many social media. We're on WhatsApp, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, on Facebook, right? And the way by which we impact the lives of people is, one, through sharing of content, practical accounting related content on social media platform, right? Trainings, right? So organize trainings and webinars such as this, whereby people are able to attend. And as much as possible, one key thing that we always try to do is that, because we understand the purchasing power of people, right, to ensure that we deliver value that is 5 times the price at which you price those courses, right? So you could see courses that potentially could go as what as 100 to 200,000, and you see us doing it for less than 15,000. Yeah. And we also share materials, right? So for example, schedules, templates, write-ups that basically help accountants understand practical things into practical accounting. Yeah. And we sometimes do some of these things for free. And we had a large pool of testimonial, right? Right now, in terms of number of people we've trained, right now, I think that number should be over excess of 3,000, right? Accountants who have gone through us through our various trainings, right? Since inception, we've created up to 15 different practical accounting courses that would help accountants improve their knowledge. We have courses around incomplete record, right? Financial statement preparation, Excel for accountants, accounting circle, financial modeling, right? Tax practice, general ledger management, preparation of money account, and a whole lot of other courses, right? All the simple goal. The goal for us is get accountants very practical in their knowledge, right? So what they cannot learn in the 4 walls of their office environment, they're able to learn it within the 4 walls of a training. Yeah. Now, in 2025, we've had trainings that have already taken place up to today's date, right? Currently, we're in the final stages of our practical accounting, preparation of financial statements, right? That extended it a bit, but it's going to end by the end of this month, unfailingly. Now, come June, we'll start financial modeling, and come August, we'll deal with Excel for accountants, right? And you can see there are all other courses. We have training that will help you improve your knowledge all the way to the end of the year at very affordable prices. Yeah. Now, who am I, right? It would be unfair for me to not properly introduce myself. My name is Oladele. I'm an accountant like you, right? I'm also a teacher and also a YouTuber, right? I have over a decade experience in terms of the finance and accounting space. And I've worked in various corporates, right? I started my career at one of the big four before I moved on to join different multinationals, right? Currently, I'm the head of finance of one of the largest agri-tech businesses in Nigeria, right? And one of the largest cultivator of maize in Africa. In my capacity, I've been able to work in various caps, and one of which is around planning and analysis, right? So I have a very sound knowledge in terms of planning and analysis, which I've leveraged in various organizations that have helped me in terms of fundraising and engaging investors at various levels, right? I've engaged at global levels in dealing with investors, dealing with multinationals and like investors like DFIs, right? If you think about DFIs, you're thinking about AFDB, BOI is a DFI, DBN is a BOI. You're talking about that globally. You're talking the likes of FMO. You're talking about the likes of KFW. You're talking the likes of BI, which was formerly called CDC, right? You're calling the likes of yeah. There are a lot of DFIs, right? Even IFC and AFC are also DFIs, and at one level or the other, I've interacted with all these DFIs. Yeah, and giving me a lot of practical experience that I'm able to share with you, given that pool of wide experience I've been in. Right? It would be unfair to me if I don't give the opportunity of participants of this webinar to set what the expectation is at the end of this webinar. So it's a 2-hour webinar. I want to ensure that whatever we hope to achieve, we're able to achieve it in that 2 hours, and whatever we cannot achieve, we're able to clearly demonstrate that, see, we cannot achieve this given the time limitation of what this webinar is going to cover, right? As a result, we're restricted to just that 2 hours. Yeah. So being that as me, right? If you have any clear expectation that you would like to share from the beginning of the webinar, you can signal by raise of hands, or you can drop it in the raise of hands or drop it in the chat box. So nobody's raising hands. That's weird. So nobody's willing to actually just to raise his hands to share his or her own expectation. All right, so we have one person. Hope we get more people.
Okay, good evening, Oladile. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shagun, and my expectation is that by the end of this webinar, I'm able to become better and be exposed to formulas to make modeling much more easier, and I can be able to create my model in a short time and an efficient way. Thank you.
All right, that's fine. So I think next person is Freaky Uzoma also, or Umo. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon, man.
To tell you the truth, I just finished a class with the financial reporting class, and it was in the class that this was mentioned. I didn't know about it, so I kind of joined because I really want to get my Excel skills to advanced level. So in preparation for the financial modeling of next month, so when I heard it, I said, let me just join and see what it's all about and what knowledge I can get towards the proper financial modeling starting next month.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So right now, the people that set the expectation that have raised their hands, the expectation are not far-fetched, right? As much as possible, we are laying the proper foundation, right? It's 2 hours, so there's a limit to how much you can cover, but we want to bring in a lot of those efficiency in modeling into the class itself, right? Okay, so let me just read what we see in the chat box. Good evening, boss. Please, there an Excel file to walk through. Definitely there's a file. I'll walk through it, but definitely I'll share it after the webinar, right? Yes. To have a fair understanding of applying Excel skills in financial modeling, which is fine. I work in a retail space. Excel as the package has been a challenge to help bridge the gap. Okay, you'll see some knowledge. All right. I can't say any more charts. So meaning that is all for now. But yeah, I think the expectation in room is not far-fetched, right? We'll just only be constrained by time. Yeah. I think people are asking, I'll try and drop the file, but it may not be easy to carry people along with the file I'll share with you, right? But you have that file such that you can always leverage it subsequently on your own. Are we together? So I'll drop in the chat box. Like I said, let's be clear from the very beginning. The expectation is not that I will be able to carry along because of the time, but as much as possible, I'll make the explanation during the course of the webinar as simple and as straightforward as possible, so that at any point in time when you want to rewatch, we can always rewatch it. And secondly, when we are discussing a point, I'll go in as much detail as possible to make sure that I carry in person, and I'll be open to answering questions at that point, right? So just so that we're clear. Let me quickly drop the file into. Okay. For one reason or the other, there is a. Let me close the file, the FS. Okay, so let me see. Good. Yeah, so I've kind of dropped it in the chat box just in case. Yeah, and we are good. All right, so let me do my screen. All right, so you can confirm you can see my screen. All right, all right. So the way I will start is, what exactly is financial modeling? The way I like to explain financial modeling is, I call it present minus any potential deductions in terms of things you don't want to do going forward, plus things you want to do in future. That's how I typically explain financial modeling to people. Now, what does this mean? Now, we've done financial statement preparation, we've done management accounts, right? We've done FS. What you notice about these two, as an accountant, you realize that they rely on your trial balance. Yeah? And your trial balance is actually a cumulation of historical events. Yeah? And there's nothing wrong with historical, but it ends there, right? To a large extent, you're only just reporting what has happened in the past. And it only just tells you, oh, this was what happened in the past. But it cannot tell you what will happen in the future. So what typically happens is that you see owners of businesses, they are very concerned about what happens in the near future. Let me give you a typical example. Sometime in 2023, after the election, there was a devaluation of the currency, right? exchange rate was roughly around 410 naira. And right now, exchange rate is about 1,006. Now, this singular devaluation in currency resulted in FX loss for a lot of businesses, right? The likes of MTN, right? Just think about the Airtel, right? Unilever, all of them all suffered devaluation. Imagine if someone had seen that come 2023 after election, there will be a devaluation of the currency from 410 to 1,006. The person could have taken up a loan. Let's even say a Naira loan, right? That was interest rate was even at 30% as of then. Taking up, let's say 10 billion Naira. Let's even say 10 billion. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 10 billion Naira. Right? And when FX was 410, let's assume parallel market was 700 at the time. The guy would have bought dollar in parallel markets based on 700 and paid off a $14 million loan at even 30% interest. Right? Now, can you compare him? Who would have made a better decision? Company A took a loan of 10 billion, right, to pay off a $14 million loan, right, and was paying interest at 30%. Or another person who decided to continue in business, right? Well, let's call it company A, company B. Company B decided to continue his business at this rate, right, and suffered a devaluation of 410 to 110. Who do you think would have been in a better position in terms of business as of today? Someone who decided to take up a 10 billion naira loan at 30% to pay off a $14 million loan, or someone who decided to keep his $14 million loan and suffer the devaluation from 410 to 1,600. So you can just include in your chat box, who do you think made a better decision? Most likely company A. Now, the reality is that this particular decision, right, nobody knew what was happening in the background. But the reality is that if someone had drawn a financial model and said, okay, let us take up a Naira loan to pay off my dollar loan at 30% interest, and let's basically see the implication of how the business will survive, right, for the next 4 to 5 years. Meaning, because of there will be a serious finance cost for that business, because at the time in 2023, when the Naira, before the Naira was devalued, interest rate was barely at 20%. So meaning that he was paying a 50%, was paying over a 50%, right? In terms of additional interest, just because we want to pay off a dollar loan. Now, the implication of that decision to buy dollar with an interest rate of 30% is only a financial model that would have been to tell you the implication in terms of the impact of that additional finance cost. That's why I said a financial model is basically your present implication, deduct anything you don't want to continue doing, and add the new things you want to do for the business, right? And that's why you see popularly that when dealing with financial models, you see things around businesses saying, oh, I want to drop a budget, is a financial model. I want to assess the going concern of a business, right? Is a financial model. I want to determine the value of a business, right? Typically is a financial model, right? I want to decide whether the cash I need to be able to sustain a particular growth level, right? So growth plans is a financial model. I want to know the cost-benefit analysis of what it will be from either me saying, oh, I want to use a truck, right? A third-party truck to help me service my customer, or I want to buy a truck myself. So a make or buy decision, right? On the side. A lot of other decisions are very futuristic in nature, require you to build a financial model, right? When you look at the standard financial model, there are a lot of things you will see. A standard financial model, what you will see is, one, you see a cover page. Cover page basically tells you about the business, right? What kind of business, the sector, right? The number of years the financial model is built on. Yeah. You will see things like your table of contents, which I call TOC. This will tell you the other sheets in the financial model, where they are and how it links up to them, right? In some financial model, you see a dashboard. The dashboard helps you summarize the outcome of a financial model. Okay, how do I see it from a governance standpoint? What are the key metrics the business is interested in? And they will see those implications in the financial model, right? You have what we call the input and assumption sheet, right? Now, the reality is nobody knows the future for certain. So typically, you have an input and assumption sheet that tells you all the key drivers that drive that model, what exactly to be, and how those numbers will impact the model in the near future. Then you have what we call workings or supporting schedules, right? Now, this acts as intermediary between your input and assumption sheets and what we call the outputs. Now, your outputs could be your primary three statements. Yeah. Even your dashboard is also an output. Yeah. So typically, this you are seeing acts as intermediary between these other ones and this, right? This acts as intermediary. It's called an intermediary, right? It is very poor financial modeling for you to link from input and assumption to your primary three statements. Rather, you have your input feed your workings or your assumption or supporting schedule, and your supporting schedule will feed your primary three statement on your dashboard. And that's how it works. Yeah. There are other schedules you potentially could see. Sometimes some people have supporting schedules in one sheet. Sometimes your supporting schedules could be complex and you decide to have them as separate sheet on their own. You can have a supporting schedule on revenue on its own, on PPE on its own, on borrowing on its own, right? These are examples of schedules or working capital that may stand on their own or may be a component of your workings and supporting schedules, right? You see them here. And each of them have how they'll be modeled and how they did. Now, this just me introducing financial modeling and just explain to you what it looks like. Now, let me quickly open a sample financial model that was built in the past, a very simple one. Now, this is a very simple financial model, nothing complex, right? So you have your cover sheet. It tells you Intelligence Hotel, financial modeling for 7 years. You have your TOC sheet, right? What you are seeing here is you're seeing cover page. It tells you these are everything tied to like your cover page. You have your summary, which is like your dashboard, and your financial statements, these are basically your output sheets. You have your assumption, which is this, right? Then you have your CapEx, your debt and workings. These are all your supporting schedules and workings, right? Now it tells you whether it's coded. When you see a coded number, how should you see it? When you see a formula, how should it look? And when you see an external link, how should it look? Yeah. You see in the summary, in this particular scenario, this is what the summary looks like. It just tells you how many rooms were let out, the revenue and the revenue per room, what the EBITDA was, right? It went down to show you the growth rates, how the business grew over the years here. Yeah. Went on to show you the financial statements, which basically is your primary three statements, your income statements, your statement of financial position, right? And shows you your cash flow, right? See it here, all designed here. Now, you have the assumption. These are the assumption sheets. Shows you the generic assumption here, things in terms of the start date and end date of the model, the macroeconomic indicators that are impacting the model, assumptions around revenue, right? Assumptions around cost of sales, can you see, is segmented. Assumption around CapEx, segmented. Assumption around financing, segmented, right? And ends there. You see the supporting workings. These are all the things that are basically, if I pick any formula here, you see that it's picking between, can you see assumption sheet? It's picking from there. If I go to my FS, right, and I go to revenue, for example, if I press F2 on it, you see that it's picking from what? My workings. And that is how it is linked. Yeah. And that's what a typical financial model looks like. Now, why did we choose Excel hack for financial modeling? We chose Excel hack for financial modeling because a typical financial model is built on an Excel spreadsheet. Meaning that if your knowledge in Excel is not good, you will struggle to build a financial model. This does not mean that all you need is knowledge in Excel. What I typically tell people that for you to build a financial model, these are the kind of skill sets you need to know. Yeah. It's good to have a knowledge in finance, right? Because typically there's a lot of financing need. People want to know, oh, how much funding do I need for maybe for debt or for equity? It's good to have an accounting knowledge because typically you see the primary three statements come out to play a lot. So you want to ensure that, oh, whatever is happening, people understand accounting. Yeah. Now, you want to have what we call business acumen. Now, because you deal with a lot of businesses, I need to understand businesses to know what drives those businesses. What are the key drivers that drive them? And how does it have an implication on the financial model? So business acumen is very, then you have what we call I'll call it a probing skill, right? Which is similar to what the auditors have, right? Question data, ask questions, be able to communicate properly to the key stakeholders you are dealing with, because by being able to ask them the right question, you are able to get the right information that will help you in building your proper financial model, right? Then you have to have an analytical mind. The reality is, unlike a lot of things that are already predefined and solutions already exist, when you're building financial model, sometimes the solution may not exist somewhere. You have to have that analytical mind to be able to construct what the result you're trying to achieve. Yeah. And you being able to connect the dots together plays a very critical role in you being able to build that financial model. Yeah. So these are 5 skills that I think are very important. It doesn't mean that it's exhaustive. There are other skills that will also play a vital role. I've got to even include the Excel skill. So I usually play an above average knowledge in MS Excel, right? Meaning you must have a good knowledge in Excel because really you use Excel a lot for this stuff, right? So meaning that you must have a knowledge in Excel. And that is why, to a large extent, I know a lot of people already have finance and accounting skill, business acumen, they may have Rubin, but let's now take Excel, right? Which you can explain in a classroom or a webinar like this to explain to people what are those skills and knowledge that you need to be able to do a financial modeling using Excel. So on this premise, I'll pause here and leave it for room for people to ask questions. If you have any question at this point, right, please signify by raise of your hands. so that we can discuss and engage at this point. Just in case any question comes across based on what we've discussed so far, before we now go to the actual Excel hack. Anyone, please? Questions? Does anyone have any questions so far? So problem skill has to do with ability to ask questions, right? So someone tells you something, you don't just take the answer on the surface, right? You basically question the question or the response the person has provided. Someone tells you, oh, let me give you a typical example. You meet a startup business and it says, oh, he believes that he's starting up, he has an idea in his mind. By year 2, they will do 100 million. By year 3, they'll do 20 billion in turnover, right? And like that. The reality is, yes, he's very ambitious. But that question is, it may not make sense. To scale from 100 million, even from 0 to 100 million, or from 100 million to 20 billion, is quite a jump, right? The growth rate is unreasonable. Now ask person, how do you think you can get to 100 million? Or how do you think you can get to 20 billion? The person now telling you, I have a very robust selling skill. I once worked with MTN. I'm very good in selling. But that does not translate to how the financial money works. How do you drive that revenue? How do you acquire the customers? Where do you want to get the fund to grow that customer base? Overnight, the business doesn't just grow overnight. Do you get? So problem skill is just that ability to question certain things you hear during the course of building that financial modeling that will help you professionally be able to build the model appropriately, right? You just question very well and probe them so that you're able to answer, right? It's like interviewing. So the someone is saying the file will be used for practice. I have shared the file already. The file is already in the chat box, right? So in the absence of no question, nobody raised their hands. So it's fine for me to progress to the Excel sheet, right? Yeah. So I would communicate the location of physical location, don't worry. But let's start. Shortcuts. Now, I like to talk about shortcuts, right? Because the reality is, before you carry your mouse and move it across, just from shortcut alone, you are able to move in a very quick way. Yeah? You'll be able to move with shortcuts. So the idea is moving very smart. With shortcuts. Yeah? So now, the first shortcut for me is F2. F2 is quickly to help you edit a cell, right? So you want to edit a cell, instead of going all the way, you can just press F2. Yeah, so this, for example, cell C4, and I want to edit it. All I need to do is press F2 on my keyboard. All right, and you can see, it's saying if E1 is equal to 10, divide 20 by 5. If E1, if not, do 20 times 3, right? Let's not disturb ourselves with the E function, but just pressing F2 tells you what the formula is going to do for you, right? So if you want to edit a formula cell, all you need to do is press F2 on your keyboard. For some people, they need to press Fn key plus F2, right? To be able to achieve that result. So it's able to help you to quickly edit that cell. Some other people would have used their mouse, they'll click on the cell and go to the formula bar and click on the formula bar. That's long, right? The moment I have on this cell, I can just press F2 and I can edit that cell straight up without any problem. Yeah. The next one is what sometimes I call formula text, right? Sometimes you are reviewing a formula in Excel, but you want to understand what the problem is. You just type formula Press tab, it fills the formula text. Select the cell that has the formula, close the bracket and press enter, right? So clearly in this point, you can see exactly the formula. And that way you can know whether, oh, there's something wrong with the formula. I need to look in more detail. It gives you fully what our formula is just by seeing formula text. Yeah. And that way, anybody is looking at it and say, oh, I can identify where the problem is in this formula. Then there's what we call Ctrl R and Ctrl D. They do what copy and paste will do for you. But instead of doing copy and paste, right, it will do it at once. So for example, if you look at this cell, if I press F2, you see that F2 is telling me that it's multiplying C15 by C14, right? That's what it's doing. I want that formula to be repeated across all these cells, right? On normal day, someone will say copy and now come on display and press space. But no, what do you need to do? Hold Shift, press your right arrow key so you highlight all the way and press Ctrl R. Yeah, and it copies it all the way to the right. So I want to do it, right? You hold the Shift key and press my right arrow key. Once I get to the end, I can press Ctrl R. Yeah. So to highlight, like I said, I'll use Shift plus my what? Right arrow key. That's the way I'll quickly highlight it. Yeah. His twin brother is called Ctrl D, right? So I have this cell here, this 2 here. I press F2. You can see what's multiplying. It's multiplying C18 by D18. I want to highlight, copy all the way down. What do I need to do? I hold Shift, press my down arrow key to the bottom, and press Ctrl D. Yeah, and repeat it downward. So basically, these two do what copy and paste will do for you. And when you are building financial model, you will do a lot of copy to the right and copy downward a lot, right? So this way, it helps you be able to build your financial models in more efficient ways because you're able to what? Copy up, copy to the right, and copy downward. Yeah. Now, we'll go to the next one. Yeah. So I'll come to Ctrl 1. Now, what I call Ctrl Shift plus 5, right? So I have a cell 0.2, 0.5, 0.8, 0.75. I want to easily convert this into percentage, right? I'll just hold Ctrl, Shift, and 5. I won't do for the people at the back. Yeah. Shift, Ctrl, and down, right? I hold Ctrl, Shift, and 5. Can you see? It helps me convert to what? Percentage easily. Yeah. It helps me do what? Convert to percentage. So at any point in time, if I want to convert decimal to percentage, instead of looking for my mouse and looking for percentage here, I see my number. I just do what? Hold my Control plus Shift plus what? 5. Yeah. And I convert it easily. That's shortcut. Yeah. This is a popular shortcut we all know. Alt equals to. It's called auto sum. Yeah. This, all I need to do is what? Press Alt and equals to. Right? And press enter. Yeah. Again, for the people at the back, Alt and equal to together. It helps me sum it. This way, I don't need to go and go and find where auto sum is on my tax bar. Shortcut, and I've dealt with it, and it's up and going, right? So now, sometimes when I'm working on an Excel worksheet, I want to what? Create space, create or select a row or select a column, right? If I press Ctrl space bar, it highlights the entire column for me, right? And with this, if I want to insert a row, a column, all I need to do is press Shift, Ctrl Shift and plus sign. Undo, Ctrl Z. Hold Shift, hold Ctrl, and press my plus sign. I will undo. So again, to highlight that column, I press Ctrl and space bar, like I spelled that here. I want to insert a column, I'll press Ctrl Shift and plus sign, and it does that for me. Yeah. Similarly, its twin brother is Shift space bar. I'll press Shift and space bar. It selects that row, and I can easily do Ctrl Shift and plus sign. So to insert a column or row, I can just press Ctrl plus Shift plus itself. Yeah. And with this, I can insert a row or column depending on what I have selected. So easily, right? Without necessarily pressing too much. Now, when you are building stuff a lot, you want to do a particular task quickly. You don't want to waste time. Yeah. You want to be very fast. So let's assume I have these cells listed here. Yeah. See all these numbers here. See all these numbers here. I want to easily add 50 to all the numbers here. What it makes use of is what we call your pay special. So instead of me to start saying adding 50 one by one here, someone who is smart with financial modeling will come here, copy 50. Come here, highlight, hold shift, press my right arrow key. I can sit here, hold shift and control, press my right arrow key to the top, then press my down arrow key to select all. Right? Once I have done that, I will type what you are seeing here, Alt ESV. No plus. I will type it one by one, like I'm typing my name. So I press Alt ESV. Right? Can you see this dialog box? This dialog box is called Pay Special. I want to add. If you look at add, for example, can you see under add, you can see the underline under D. So I press D. Right? And I press enter. Just watch to 65, 75, 85. Watch how it will increase. Can you see how it has increased? It has added 50 to it. So someone else would have manually been dragging and doing that. How many minutes take me? Less than 30 seconds. Yeah. Similarly, I can also do that to subtraction. Yeah. Let's assume I copy all these numbers here. Let's bring it down here. But I want to subtract by 10. So I'll copy my 10, hold shift, highlight to the right, down to the bottom. I press Alt ESV, right? Then I subtract by 10. If you look at this dialog box, subtract is what? S. Press S and press enter. Can you see? It has deducted 10 from all of this. Yeah. So that way I have removed 10 from that. And that is another shortcut, right? I would not do the division, right? Divide by 2. Not because I cannot do it. Or short, let me do it. Let me copy this whole cell here that we have here. Copy it. Bring it down here. Pick 2. Highlight everything. Alt ESV. Divide. If you check it very well, divide is I. You press I. Can you see? I selected I here and I press enter. Take note, dividing by 2. Watch how these numbers will become less than 100. Can you see? They are divided by 2. Easily. So I don't need to repeat, right? I'll leave this multiplication for people to do multiplication. Now, the next one is sometimes I'm working with a cell. I want to quickly transpose it. The cell is this way. I'll hold shift and control, select to the end, control down to select to the bottom. I'll do Control C, right? I'll take it to where I want to transpose it. Similarly, I'll press Alt ESV, right? Then the last one, see transpose. If E under it is E, so you press E. See, it has selected transpose here, and I press enter. Can you see? This was before a 5 by 3. Can you see now it's now 3 by what? 5. What was, we check the numbers here. 25, 24, 24, 15, and 10. See 25, 24, 24, 15, and 10. It has what? Transposed it easily, right? Just its pay special. So you don't need to worry yourself. You don't worry yourself. Now, sometimes you've written a formula, but you don't understand what is happening, right? You can use F9 to evaluate it. It can tell the result before even Excel does it. So I press F2. Yeah. Then I highlight the logical function that is here, which is E83 equal to 1. I highlight it like this. Once I highlight it like that, just be watching. Can I see that it's a cell is equal to 1? Watch what happens when I press F9. Just watch closely, F9. What do you see? it turns to false. Why? F9 is a shortcut to help you do a formula evaluate, right? I can Ctrl Z to return it back to normal, and I press F9. It automatically tells me that what I've done, the result is what? False. So I know that, oh, is there a problem here? I can look at it. That way, when I'm building financial models, as I'm reviewing or evaluating formulas, when there's a challenge, I can easily understand when there's something wrong with the formula just by using F9. And later on, you see us apply it one way or the other. Yeah. And that is F9 for you. So right now, I have gone through some of the functions or shortcuts that help me in building financial models, right? And so before I progress to referencing, I want to ask anyone if anyone has any specific question relating to any of the shortcuts we've discussed so far. Any question, please? Any question? Raise of hands. HP. Yeah. Hi, HP. Hi, HP. I'm unmuting you, but there's no response.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hello?
I hear you. Yeah, speak.
Okay. Please, with regards to where I can be, this one you just explained, right? The last one, this last financial model, the formulas, the shortcut for divide, addition, subtraction.
Okay,
Sorry, I don't know where you clicked that you went to that aspect.
Okay, so this is a shortcut, Alt ESV, right? So you just press on your
Oh.
keyboard and to come up. So sometimes, depending on your version of Excel, it may not come up, right? But what I'll tell you is that to get the shortcut, press Alt. You will notice letters on the top of your screen, right? But first, you need to copy. Let's assume, for example, now, wanted to add 50. You copy 50. Right? You highlight destination. That copy must happen first. If it doesn't happen first, you're on your own. Press Alt, right? It's under Home. We press H. Under H is under Paste. Can you see V? I'll press V. Right? Then see the final Paste Special is S. So I press S. So on your keyboard, you need to know what you need to press, right? So I'll repeat again for the people at the back. Alt, right? You see letters at the top of your screen. H is where it's under. You press H because that's where Home is. You press H. Yeah. After H is under Paste. So you press V. Under V, you have Paste Special. You have S. You press S. Yeah. So automatically, in my own, right? My Excel still recognizes Alt ESV, but it means I can press Alt H V S and to work for me. On your own laptop, this may not work, but this may work. Or another one, depending on your version of Microsoft Excel. But using the Alt, it will show you the prompt one by one, right? So once the dialog box appears, then depending on what you want to do, if it's addition is D, if it's subtraction, I think S, if it's divide is I, if it's multiply, I think it's M, right? You just need to check the dialog box and see the letter underlined, and you'll be able to sort out that particular one. Does that answer your question, please? HP, just want to be sure. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's it.
All right, thanks. Hi, Ibrahim.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ibrahim.
Yeah. Please, I would like you to take us through the F9 key.
Okay, so for F9, right? So I didn't do anything deep in it, right? So what I'm saying is that I have a formula. This example of it, okay, this is not the formula. I picked this formula, for example. I press F2 to edit it, right? I want to know the result of a particular section with that formula. So I highlight it. Can you see?
Okay.
Yeah. Once I highlight it, I can now press F9. It shows me false. We've not done with if function, so let's not disturb ourselves with the if. But it has evaluated what that logical test is and told me that the result is false, right? There are more cases where it could be used. You will see it when we talk about, I don't want to use any complex one, so we're not covered, we're not confused with that particular formula. But as we progress, you will see me apply F9 in one or two scenarios where it may make more sense to you. But what I'm just saying is that it's able to like execute what that formula is trying to do and tell you what the result is for that particular section within the function. That's what it basically does.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So someone said, how proficient must one be in Excel to be solid in financial modeling? I would say just above average, right? Above average meaning that you know a lot of reasonable functions, right? And you see, a lot of the functions you need are actually covered on these sheets, right? Once you know most of the functions that I've listed here, you can be able to build financial modeling from an Excel standpoint. But like I said, it's not just your knowledge in Excel that will make you a full-fledged financial modeler. All these other ones, right? You need it. Yeah, you have a knowledge of finance, understand accounting, have business acumen in terms of you understand how businesses work and operate, have a probing skill because you're going to question, you're going to interact with people a lot. So you want to ask them questions that will be able to properly help you drive how you're building model. You have an analytical mind because at the end of the day, you're going to connect a lot of things together. If you don't know how to think logically, you may struggle with building financial model. Then have an above average because at the end of the day, when you build all this, it's on the spreadsheet that will help you connect everything that you build on it. So I'll just say an above average knowledge in Excel should be fine. So I hope the video will be shared. Yes, you see it on the YouTube channel. Good evening, boss. Thanks for this session. I think I've answered that one. And that question is, good evening, sir. I've been having network issues for some time now. My question is after the end of the seminar, I understand the difference between benefit of financial modeling and FS preparation. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Now, we're done with shortcuts. I'm not saying that is all the shortcut there is. There are more, but at least these ones I've told you is a good way to start. Yeah. The next one is what I call cell referencing. So cell referencing is just think about how you have a name, right? We grew up in our family and your parents name you, right? They name you Chigoze or Chidima or Nonso or Samuel or Dayo or Wale or Eniola, right? They give you a name so that when they call your name any day in the house, so nobody else will respond but you. So cells are named in Excel, right? So for example, this cell is called cell C5 or B5, and you can see it here, B5. This cell, I'm still sharing. Sometimes I don't know what happens in my Excel sheets. Yeah, this cell, for example, is cell C9. Now, so when you call a cell, there's a way you want that cell or whatever is stored in that cell to reference. And that's what we call cell referencing in Excel. So there are three types of cell reference. You have absolute, mixed, and relative. Absolute is saying, no matter where we call you from, don't move from where you are, right? Stay fixed in that position. I will call absolute. Relative is saying, wherever you go, I go. Do you understand? So as you move to the left, it will move to the left. If you move downwards, move down. You move to the right, move to the left. That's relative referencing. And you have mixed. Mixed could be shown in two forms. It's either you lock one column and it can move row-wise, or you lock the row and it can move column-wise. So typically, when you want to know the types of referencing of a cell, you will see it by the dollar sign. Absolute, you see a dollar before the alphabet, meaning that it's locked from the column, and you see a dollar beside the number, meaning that it's locked along the row, right? Mixed, you see a dollar sign either before the alphabet or before the number. It can only have one of them. That's mixed because it can only stay fixed along the column or row. But relative, you will not see a dollar sign at all. right? And typically, to toggle between the different types of referencing, you make use of what they call the F4 key, right? Toggle. Toggle means change, right? To change from different types of referencing, you need F4. So let's give, for example, sorry, I was on mute. I said, let's say, for example, I was on mute for a while. I don't know if you heard me or it's just, okay, just now that it happened. I was scared. Please, okay, all right, good. So let's say, for example, yeah, I have, these are years, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, all to year 8. I have amount in USD borrowing, right? I want to get the Naira equivalent of all this borrowing based on a fixed exchange rate of 1.4. Yeah? Meaning that if I'm here, I want this one to multiply this by 400. If I'm here, I want to multiply this by the same 400. If I'm here, I want to multiply this by the same 400. What I need is an application of fixed ref or absolute reference. Yeah? So here, I'll say equal to, I will choose above, times, I'll select the cell below, which is this one. Yeah? But in this particular scenario, I will press F4 to lock. Yeah? If you notice, can you see the dollar sign before C and dollar sign before 13? That is absolute referencing, and I press enter. Yeah? Following this, all I need to do is hold Shift, highlight to the end, and press my right arrow key. And it does that. I can highlight the various columns, just double tap the edge so that Excel expands just to the size of the text. Doesn't expand too much, right? Can you see? It has applied absolute referencing. Just to show you that I applied absolute referencing, if I come to the last cell and I press F2, right? Can you see that multiply 1,004 by 400 here? If I come here, press F2, that multiply 1.6 million by 400. If I just by coming here and I say, oh, exchange rate is now 780, all the cells will update. Or let me say the new rate is now 300. Can you see it change? Or it's now 250. That's the beauty of absolute referencing, right? All of them change. But let's assume in a scenario, I'm saying that there's a yearly devaluation of the currency, right? Let's start with, let's say, 1,000. And this is devaluation of 42.18. And I want to show the result of devaluation here, right? Meaning that if I say pick here, pick the last exchange rate plus the below one. If I don't attach any dollar sign to any of them, I'm making it a relative. Meaning that if I am here, I want it to pick this and this. If I am here, I want it to pick this and this. That is relative for you. Relative to the position where I am, move along, right? So let's apply it. Come here. It's equal to this plus what? What's below? Yeah, 1.4. I hold Shift, press my right arrow key to get to the end, and I can press Ctrl R. Right? So you can see. If I come here and press F2, can you see it? It has helped me add the valuation there. It has come here. It has added 1216 to 18 because it has shown me the valuation of the currency. I can easily just, so that these cells show well, I highlight all the way and double click the edge. Can you see? That what I have applied here is relative. If you look at it, F2, can you see there's no dollar sign? No dollar sign. That is relative referencing. Now, mixed. Mixed is a very technical one. And unfortunately, it's the one that is the most useful when building financial model. And a lot of people struggle with it. Yeah? Now, look at this cell. I have gross salary here. And I have percentages of composition of salary. I want to show you by whenever I'm in any place here, it only picks this gross salary and applies the appropriate percentages here. If I'm here, it applies the appropriate exchange rates here. If I'm here, it applies the appropriate exchange rates, or sorry, percentages across this figure. and that is relative, or sorry, mixed. Now, what it means is that it cannot leave this column for the gross salary, and it cannot leave this row for the appropriate percentage. So what do? I come here, I say is equal to, I pick my amount, right? I need to stay fixed on what? Column D. So I press F4. 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 So it stays fixed on what? Column D, right? Meaning that wherever I go, it doesn't leave column D. It can change to row 39, to 31, to 32, to 33. But it will never leave what? Column D. Then I multiply. I choose the percentage. It must not leave what? Row 20 what? 7. But I press F4 until dollar is only on what? 27. Right? It has achieved that. Once you achieve that, I can easily do what? Hold Shift, press my right arrow key to get to the end, press Ctrl R, hold Shift, press my down arrow key to get to the bottom, and I press Ctrl D. Yeah? If I've gotten it right, if I pick my 248 and I press F2, you see that it's multiplying what? 20% by 1.2. If I come to 309 and I press F2, it's multiplying what? 20% by what? 1.5. That is perfect. If you're able to replicate what I've done here, you've been able to get yourself 10% forward in your Excel knowledge required for financial modeling. Because why? It makes your modeling, writing Excel functions or formulas very efficient once you're able to be able to apply cell referencing perfectly between when to use absolute, relative, and mixed referencing. And I can tell you for a fact, a lot of people struggle with it. Once you're able to hack it, it will make your financial modeling easier and easy to follow and easy to build. You will see it as you go further, right? So I'll pause here as I have done clear good example on cell referencing across the 3 types, so that if anybody has any question at this point, please speak or forever hold your peace. So someone said, repeat your relative referencing. Ctrl Z to undo. Ctrl Z to undo. Ctrl Z to undo. Yeah. Ctrl Z to undo. Yeah. So someone said I should repeat relative. No problem. Relative, I will do again. So for relative, the first point for relative was first to get the adjusted exchange rate, the new exchange rate. So we say equal to, pick this, plus the cell below. What you notice, can you see there's no dollar sign? When you see it like that, it means no exchange, no relative referencing, right? And I press enter. Once I've done that, I can press Shift, press my right arrow key to get to the end, and press Ctrl R, and I get all of them. If you check any cell and you press F2, can you see? It's picking this cell, just beside it. If I go to anyone, same, this cell and this cell, just beside it. And that's relative referencing for you. So someone said, how can you do undo? Ctrl Z to undo. Please help with mixed referencing. Please repeat absolute and mixed again. Okay, for absolute, for the people at the back, absolute is pretty straightforward. Here, we have our figures here. We want to multiply each of these figures by a fixed rate of 250. So I equal to, pick my figure times the exchange rates. What do I do next? I press F4 to toggle between different types of referencing. When I press F4 once, can you see the dollar before C and dollar before 13? That is absolute. So I go to my absolute, so I press enter, hold Shift, press my right arrow key till I get to the end, and I press Ctrl R. And you can see what? Absolute referencing apply. If I come here and I press F2, you will see that it has multiplied 1.4 million, but it has multiplied fixed by what? $250. And that is absolute. Yeah. For mixed, what you see is here. At every time, if I'm here I want to multiply 20% by 1.2. If I'm here, I want to multiply 20% by 1.5. Now, what you observe is that in any time I am within this area, I want to stay fixed along this column, and I want to stay fixed along this row, right? So what I need to do is equal to this, yeah, F4, 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 column D, right? Times this. I want to stay fixed along that row, so that should be 27. F4, F4, see the dollar is beside 27. I am there. Enter, right? And I press Ctrl R, hold Shift, press my down arrow key, and press Ctrl D. I'm on the top of the world, right? And I've done this. So F2, can you see it? 29 million. Can you see multiplying this by 20%? Here, F2, 10% by 1.9 million. 621, 50% by 1.2. And that is mixed referencing. That is what? Mixed referencing. So I repeated mix and read. My question is now, provisions in Excel, one must be before being classified as a financial modeling analyst. So I won't say this is advanced, right? To be honest, this is just like average basic knowledge you need to know in Excel. Not data entry, but even as an accountant, what I'm explaining now, even as an accountant, you should know it, right? So I wouldn't consider it as an advanced. I'll just consider it just above average, right? And that's what I'll call this, yeah, in everything we are doing. Now, the next one is custom format. Now, typically, when you see in an Excel worksheet, you see things as fine as, see, for example, just see quarter like this, right? So you want to show quarter in this cell. Yeah. So let's assume we have 1. This plus 1, 2. And you want to have it to the end. But you want this cell to still show, to still be 1. But you want to show that when you look at it, it will show quarter. So this is an example. If you look at this cell, can you see quarter 1? But if you look at the formula bar, what are you seeing? 1. Meaning that if I come here, right? And I say this times 3. Can you see that it's giving me 3? Or let me use a place that is not there, right? So let me put, for example, this times 3. Can you see that it's giving me 6? Yeah. But if I put QTR1, QTR2, right? And I pick this cell and I say multiply by 3, for example. Can you see the give me error is giving me message? Because it doesn't see that as a cell, as a number, but sees as a text. So how do you do this in Excel? Just highlight the cell, for example, right? Press Ctrl 1 on your keyboard. Go to custom format. Pick any one. Delete whatever you're seeing there. Put double quotes, QTR. You can put a space, double quotes. Then you can put hash. And press OK. Yeah? Can you see? Now, if I pick any of these cells, let's say let me copy this. If I pick this, and multiply by 3, and I drag to the right, can you see that it's multiplying it? That's because this cell is seeing it as a number and not as a text. Yeah? I'll press Ctrl +1 to get to that formula cell, right? Yeah? So let's say this one, for example. Again, I press Ctrl 1, go to custom format, choose any one. I delete the content there, double quotes, QTR, space, double quotes, and I can put hash. And I click OK. Can you see? it has helped me to arrange this to give me quarter. And these actually numbers. So that makes your financial modeling more readable and more presentable, right? When dealing with people. I don't know, someone seems to be writing on the screen. Yeah. So that's how you see me applying custom formats. So similarly, custom format has basically like 4 sections, right? It has positive, right? Separated by semicolon, negative, separated by semicolon, 0, separated by semicolon, and text. Yeah. And you can easily custom format it. Now, we'll not go into more details into what it looks like, but I'll just show you an example, right? So you see these numbers, like, let me copy and paste it here. Yeah, these are numbers. But I want to show you by when I see it, it doesn't appear like this. So let me custom format it. Ctrl 1 to get there. I can pick any one. I'll say hash, comma, hash, 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 right? I don't want it to show comma or dot 0, right? The numbers there are in what? These are in billions. If I take 2 commas, if I put 2 commas, it automatically means I've taken like 6 zeros. 1, 2, right? Then the next thing is I want the text of M to show. So I put M, double quote M, and I finish it and I press OK. Yeah? Can you see? It has changed it to exactly what this is. And what did I do? This is what I put in my custom format. Hash, comma, 1, 2, 3, dot 0, right? So that it has at least one decimal place, space, double quote, M, double quote. This is what I put in the custom format cell. Yeah? And you can see it play out here. Yeah? And that is how I do it. And sometimes this is just helps you in presentation because sometimes you don't want to see the entire 6 zeros is in billions. You just want it properly formatted. And that is how you apply custom formats at that level of detail, right? There are other use cases, but I'll move on to the next part. Yeah. So this is just me encouraging you to join our financial modeling training from 7th of June to 6th of July for 5 weeks. For virtual participant, just 26,875, and for physical for 3,750. The reality is that this is a steal, right? I bet it with you, you cannot get a financial modeling training that will last for roughly 10 days and be charged at this price. The nearest you see for a training that will last for this amount, the cheapest you can potentially see is 200,000, right? But let me not brag. Let's continue. So the next one is if, right? So most times when you are building financial models, you want to tell them to potentially say, oh, apply what's called it? You want it to apply a growth rate, right? So you don't, it's not every time that, oh, the model will grow and you want to apply growth rate, right? You want to say that you want to apply growth rate only when there's a trigger, right? Yeah. So for example, let's assume that the business has said, oh, they want to apply growth rate only once in, they want to apply growth rates maybe once in 3 years. That's the frequency of application is once in 3 years. Let's say frequency. Yeah. Once in 3 years. What this means is that if I'm in, you only see me apply increase in year 3, year 6, and year 9, right? So typically, the function that helps you do that is called mode, right? It helps you, it divides the number by 3 and returns the remainder, right? And the idea is that in any number that is divisible by 3, that is the year of potentially that you want to do an increment. So what you're going to do is equal to mode, pick this, divide by our frequency, which is 3. I'll lock it F4, right? And close my brackets. Sorry, I made a mistake. Is equal to mode, choose here, comma, and choose here, and press F4, right? And I can close my brackets. Yeah. So this changes to what? 1, and I can drag all the way by pressing Ctrl R. And can you see? 0 here, 0 here, and 0 here. Now, I have so let's now pick it. So this is the inflation across each of the years, or this is the growth rate across each of the year, right? The idea is that for any year, I want to grow by a particular percentage, right, based on the applicable growth rate or inflation in that period, or let's say growth and inflation combined or whatever, right? Let me check. Yeah. So what do? I'll put if, I'll do a logical test. If this is equal to 0, then bring in inflation. Otherwise, what? Put 0, close my bracket. Yeah. And I press enter. Hold shift, and I press my right arrow key, and I have my various percentages there. Yeah. So now, once I've done that, my first year, obviously it's first year, so there can't be any growth, so I put it there, right? My second year, I can easily just pick my previous year plus, times into bracket 1 plus the growth rate, which is what is here, and I close my bracket. Yeah, and I press enter. I hold shift and control, press my right to the extreme right, and press Ctrl R. What you see, or what you take note of, is that you see that, can you see the increase here? If I press F2, and you notice that what? Here is 0. So I use mode to do my trigger to tell me. And you see it that it's only in the years that you have here, and you can see an increase here. Yeah. Ignore all this. Yeah. And you can see that here. Yeah. And you can see that increase. You can see that increase. We applied mode, right, to trigger us when to increase. And you can see the increment here. Yeah. Now, the next one is, we've seen this play out here. And I'll leave you to apply it and see how you could use it in this scenario. And let's see how it plays out for you. Now, date. Now, when you see models, typically you see a lot of date-related things, right? Now, you will see, for example, a start and end date, and you want to do something around a 6-month range between different periods, or maybe a 3-month period between different periods, right? At the top of the model, because a lot of financial model make use of dates. So you say it's equal to, choose the date to start with, right? That's one. Then you put EOM, which is end of month. Choose what's above, right? Comma, 6. Press F4, right? right? And close the brackets, right? So sorry, you put -1, yeah? So that between this and this is a 6-month period. You now come here, equal to, choose the cell below here and do +1, yeah? Once you do that, you're able to create like a 6-month range. I can easily just hold Shift and press my right arrow key here. Can you see? This is that 6-month period. I can now hold these two together and highlight to the end and press Ctrl R. This way, I've gotten a 6-month period of what it will look like. If, for example, I don't want 6 months, I want 3 months, all I need to just press 3 here. Yeah? If I want it somewhere else, I can put 2. If I want 7, I'll put 7. Yeah? I put 3. If I want 2, I'll put 2. That's how it is. And it's able to show me that, right? Because that way, this data, I will use at any point in time. And you see this apply a lot when you see financial models, because typically you leverage dates a lot in the kind of things you do. And that's how you see it play out, right? So imagine if I've done, for example, 3. Yeah, this is basically like quarters, right? So I can easily have 1, come here and do +1 here and drag all the way. Yeah. Then I can say highlight all the way to the end and press Ctrl 1. Click on custom format. Double quote QTR space, then hash. And I press OK. And I have my quarters easily, right? And that way, any point in time, anybody that is looking at it already sees the quarters. And you see this apply a lot in financial models. Date range, properly quarters, properly referenced, and easily I can read it and understand that this model is built on a quarterly basis without any problem. Yeah. And you can do the same using the other examples that we have there. The other one we talk about is data validation. Or let me pause. Does anyone have any question based on if and date? Does anyone have any question? Okay, so someone was saying, oh, let's take the growth formula again, right? So I'll use this as an example, right? I think so Deep Lab is saying that price will only be adjusted once in 4 years. Yeah. So now what happens? I have here, I put is equal to mode, comma. Then I choose the 4 year, F4 year, and I lock it and I close it. Yeah. And I do this here. And I press Ctrl R. Let me comma separate it. Now you will notice that anytime you see a multiple of 4, it gives you a 0. What it tells you that they said, oh, the only frequency adjustment is once in every 4 years, right? So the 4th year, they increase it, again, they don't increase it again, right? Now, you want to say, oh, this is the price per carton, and you only want to increase the price when there is what? When there's a price adjustment, yeah? I don't want to make a formula complex. I'll leave that first part, but I'll say input equal to here. I'll delete this. Is equal to if. If this is equal to 0, Then pick my price, increase it by 10. I'll press F4 to lock it. Then multiply by the previous price. Otherwise, pick the previous price and close. Yeah. So I hold Shift, press my right arrow key. And you can see that it's only in this point that it turns to what? There's a 10% increase. And why is that the case? If I press F4, let me highlight this and press F9. You see that it gives me true. Ctrl Z. If I come here, press F2, and I light the logic here, and press F9, it gives me false, right? Now, that's me using F9 to evaluate, to show you what is happening in the background. So with this, you have to test. If I change this, for example, to 3, you see that the price is only changing in the third year. If I change this to 20%, you can see it's changing. This is how inputs and drivers work in the financial model, right? If I change it twice, can you see the price changing? If I change it once in 5 years, can you see how it's changing, right? And that's how you have input that drive the model. So you don't need to go back and edit the formula, right? Because the way you structure the formula is in an efficient form so that you don't start repeating yourself. You're not hard coding, what they call hard coding, which is one of the things that financial models frown about. Yeah. So I don't even answer the question that was asked around price adjustments. And you see now we've applied it. All right. So we've done EOM in date and we've done if. Now I want to do data validation. Yeah. Now for data validation, right? Sometimes you want to create scenarios in financial models, right? And the way models work is that you want to create a drop down so that when the user changes it, the model is able to adjust. And what we typically do in creating scenarios is that we make use of data validation. And how do you do that? You create a drop-down list that you allow the user to choose from. So let's give, for example, yeah, I have best, base, and worst case, and I want to create a drop-down. I go to data. Click on data validation. Select lists. And select my source, which is best, base, and worst. And press OK. And with this, I can select what I want. Best, base, best case, worst case. And that's my drop-down, right? Similarly, I can also apply it on this. Yeah. I'll create here again, data validation, lists, my source, 1, 2, 4, and I press OK. And I can select what I want. Yeah. Now, I want to go further. I want it to show scenario 1, scenario 2. And I'll make use of custom formats to adjust it. I'll press Ctrl 1. Custom formats. Choose any one. Delete the contents. I'll put double quotes, scenario, hyphen space, double quotes, then hash. And I press OK. Can you see? And I can choose the scenario. The sex is saying scenario, but I can tell you for a fact that if I come here and I choose here and I multiply by 5, it will still multiply. Because what is happening is that, yes, you are seeing the text, but if you look at the formula bar, it is 2. Yeah. And that is how financial models are built. right? It makes it descriptive enough for any user to understand what is being talked about, but you can also still use that same cell efficiently to do other manipulations on the Excel worksheet. And that is how you make use of drop down in this cell and in this cell in your financial model when creating scenarios. And you see us apply it later on, right? But I'll pause here and see if anybody has any question before we progress further. Yeah. Any question, please? Okay, so I said just to create the data validation, right? Let's assume I want to create it here. I say you can find it under data. Data validation. Lists. Select the cell and press OK. Right? And I can click here and select any one that you want. Yeah. Okay, I think Sukomi has a question. Hi, Sukomi.
Hi, very good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Please, can you please take that custom format for scenario? How did you do it such that you can still use it as a number? Thank
Okay,
you.
so I press Ctrl 1. Yeah, I select custom formats. I choose any of the format that is available. I delete this content because I don't need it. I put double quotes and I type scenario. Double quotes and I type scenario. I put hyphen, double quotes. Then I close it with the hash sign and I press OK. Yeah, and that way you are seeing it as 3. You are seeing that scenario 3. If we look at the formula bar, it's seen as 3, meaning that I can easily multiply this by a number and to not give me a problem. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, okay, one more opportunity, right? So for those who have not heard it before, so this is basically the financial modeling training, right? That's coming up shortly. By 7th of June, we'll start. I think, let me drop the link about the training for you people on the group. In case anybody has not seen it before. All right, so I've dropped on the group just in case for anybody who is interested in joining the training, so you don't miss out on the opportunity. Now, the next one is still on cell referencing, but now I'm taking cell referencing a step further, right? And now what is happening now? When you are building models, typically you have a lot of input and drivers, you have people, right, that want to drive it. In the particular scenario, we have head count. We have this number of people in the organization at various levels. we have their salaries, right? We've now also said that their salary will increase once in 3 years. Yeah. So the first thing first is I tried to set up the trigger to show if the year will be a year of trigger. So say it's equal to mode, select the year, comma, and choose 3 and press F for year. Yeah. Then I close the bracket. So down is, can you see 0 in year 3? The next one is I want to apply it here. So I'll say is equal to if this, and I need to stay fixed on 7. So you see me press F4 to stay fixed on 7 is equal to 0, right? Then do an increment. Print the last salary, multiply it by into bracket 1 plus the increment, which I need to stay fixed on. I press F4 and I close my brackets. Otherwise, just pick the old salary if it's not a year of increment. And I close my brackets. Yeah, and I press enter. I press Ctrl D, so I like to bring it downwards. I like to the end and I press Ctrl R. Yeah, and if you check very well, this is me applying mixed referencing. I can see in year 3, that's when you can see an increment. Now, to get the salary based on the head count, I can easily just say, pick the number of employees, right? But I need to stay fixed on column E, which I press F4 for, times the salary downwards. So as I go down, it should just move. Down is relative. I'll not worry myself. Press enter. What I've done is ensure the salaries are in thousands, right? Custom format. Ctrl D. Highlight to the end. Ctrl R. Can you see? Only increase is in year 3, which you can see. And year 6. Yeah. So that is me applying if referencing on a particular scenario. So here I have combined it. And this is how efficient models are built, right? With the referencing properly done and linking properly, right? You can see it clear out in very simple form. In very simple form. Yes, the recording will be available on YouTube just for anybody who is willing to watch. All right. So now sometimes when you are building models, you have error messages. You have the ones like something, each error, you see #NA, right? You see #div, different error messages. But you don't want to appear, or you want something else to appear, right? So let me give you an example. If I do this number divided by this, it gives me a result, right? Now, can you see this div 0? You don't want it to appear. It doesn't make sense. It makes your what you are doing very funny, right? So how do you resolve that? You make it what you call if error. So you put it in brackets. Delete equal to if error. Yeah. You can now do amount divided by divisor. And if you don't want anything when there's an error, just leave it blank. Sorry, let me do it again. If error. Yeah. Then you can now hold Shift to the end and press Ctrl R. So you see clearly, whenever there's an error, just put 0 there. That way, it makes your model more efficient in terms of looking at it, right? And doesn't have all those funny errors. The problem about it that if you don't know how to use it well, it can be suppressing a real problem in the financial model. And that's why people always tell you that you have to be careful when you're using it. You must have be able to test your model well, so that if error, you've seen that that's an error. The only way you can manage it so that it doesn't affect the other side of the model is to use an error suppressor, right? There are many functions that are error suppressors. You have if error, you have if any, right? They can help you manage and suppress an error so it doesn't come out. Yeah. And it helps when building financial models a lot. Yeah. Now, the next one is managing selection. Now, you've seen us, we've seen how to create scenarios, right? So let's say, for example, there are 3 scenarios: best, base, and worst, right? Let's just call them scenario 1, scenario 1. Let's just call it 1, 2, 3, right? And let's format it Ctrl 1. Custom formats. Yeah. Then we can create a drop down. Data validation. Lists. Okay. You can select one of them, click on home. Yeah. So we have our scenario selected, right? Scenario 2. Now, based on the scenario, we can make it what we call a choose function. So it's equal to choose. Select the index and put all the potential answers, right? So I'll press F4 here, comma. Our first option is this. Second option is this. And our third option is this, right? I'm basically telling Excel that based on the index, choose option 2. And I close my brackets. Yeah. And I can drag this to the extreme right. If I come here, just by using this data validation and I choose 1, can you see 3? If I turn it to 126, 223. Can you see it changing? You can see already the implication in terms of how you are seeing the quantity and the price, right? Let's put this one as price, right? Yeah. I think what I will do. Yeah, exactly. Sorry. This is revenue, right? So basically, we already have our quantity and this was price. Yeah. So you need to multiply it. Just by changing scenarios, we can see how our revenue number is changing. Yeah. And you can see it across board. And this is how you see the application of data validation and how it's applied using creating scenarios, leveraging the choose function, right, to help you derive the results you hope to achieve without any problem. And this is one of the efficient ways of creating scenarios, right, using Excel. But does anyone have any question based on this one so far? Anyone, please? Question, please. All right. So I would say we can't definitely cover everything, right? But I hope I've been able to show you different functions and see how we've applied them. And we've seen how they apply them in terms of financial modeling. And hopefully we see you join the financial modeling training, right? And you're able to see. Yeah, sure, I'll share the worksheet, no problem. You see it on YouTube. But just want to be sure that everybody was able to pick one or two learnings from what we've done, right? It was just 2 hours, but hopefully in that 2 hours, I hope it was efficient enough for us to learn as much as possible, right? Leveraging a cross section of a lot of Excel functions and features that you could apply in financial modeling and seeing how they play out. Yeah. So if you don't mind, you can just share 1 or 2 things you've learned during the course of this webinar and just let me know. Does anyone want to speak? Okay, you have a question. All right, no problem. Do you want to speak aloud? Hi, Ademola.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. No?
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your efforts and your detailed explanation. Please, I just have a question concerning error suppressing,
Okay.
right? Yeah, you use if error to change non-valid to 0.
Mhm.
Assuming they are valued are equally 0, apart from the non-valid converted to 0,
Mhm.
how will you be able to differentiate between the two in case you need to recheck and try to understand why it's given non-valid?
Okay. So I get what you're saying, right? So instead of putting 0, right, you can choose something else.
Okay.
Yeah, I can put an empty cell so that nothing appears there. Does that
Okay.
answer your
Okay.
question?
I think yes. Perfectly well.
All right, thanks. All right. Does anyone else have any other question? All right. If nobody has any question, hopefully I get to see people join our financial modeling training. But I hope that I've made it to whet your appetite in terms of how you can use Excel efficiently in how you think about modeling, right? I wish you could do more. But like I said, we are constrained by the webinar being just roughly about 2 hours. But trust me, once you're able to put some of these functions together, it helps you build more efficient financial models, right? And it ensures efficiency and reduces the number of errors potentially you could have from inefficiency in how you build your model. Yeah. In the absence of no questions, I want to appreciate everybody that made out time to join this webinar. I wish the class was more engaging than it was, right? Because typically webinars like this is from the questions are actually where you actually get a lot of excitement around the webinar. But it was nice at least helping people around. And thanks for the questions you've asked. But thank you, everybody. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. And hopefully we get to see you come June.